All right, guys, what's going on? It's Jack, and welcome back to another video. And yes, I actually think I have a solution to Splitgate 2's dilemma, so to speak. Now, I'm going to ask you, and I usually don't ask for anything. As a matter of fact, I don't ask for anything. So all I'm going to do is ask you, the viewer, to bear with me on this one and to stick around for as long as possible. I know most of you only stick around anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes, which is very understandable. But if you're truly interested in this particular subject and you're willing to at least hear me out from start to finish, I'd really appreciate it if you stick around. And with that being said, I also hope that the devs are listening because I'm not a genius, but there's something that we really haven't looked into that literally just popped into my mind not too long ago. And I was like, oh my gosh, ding, ding, ding. So let's share it. Let's do this. So I'm going to start out with some cold, hard facts. And I really hate to say this, but I think it's to be true. And one thing that's unique about Splitgate 2 is that it is an arena shooter. And within it being an arena shooter is unique, and I don't think that should change. I don't think this game needs to be quote unquote made easier. I think this game is fine in terms of its foundation, in terms of, the gameplay, the mechanics, the movement, the way everything works, the skill gap and all that kind of stuff. That is unique in and of itself, and it needs to progress forward and continue to progress. And I don't think that needs to be changed. You know what I mean? And I'm actually grateful for it because a lot of games nowadays are just, making things, way, way, way too easy, whether it's the increased aim assist or whether it's a damn algorithm in the matchmaking that kind of rigs shit, whatever. This game doesn't do that, right? So I think this game needs to stay the course in terms of where it's going. And I am one of the few faithful that hopefully within 4 to 6 weeks or so, that the majority of the bugs and performance optimizations and all that kind of stuff will be sorted out within this game, so that way it continues to progress forward and the wheels can get turning and the devs can continue to fill out, to fulfill their promise in terms of what their concept is for the game, as well as the community chiming in as well. Now, with that being said, the cold hard facts are that even though all these things are cool, that the arena shooter for the longest time, and especially since it's one of the oldest multiplayer genres, if not the oldest multiplayer genre, if you go all the way back to Quake 1, Unreal Tournament, Quake 3 Arena, the more recent 2017 release of Quake Champions or whatnot, the arena shooter isn't necessarily as popular as some of the most popular multiplayer shooters out there. However, there is something that we really we've been overlooking, we haven't even paid attention to at all, and I'm going to bring light to this. And not only that, I'm also going to say that the devs already have created a foundation for this in the first place. So if we have a foundation in place, we can create other things to add on to it in order to make this thing a reality. And again, I think we'd be missing an opportunity if we didn't do this or something like this, right? So here's what I propose. Now, the first thing that made the light bulb go off in my head was that ever since 2016, and then a few years later, and then this year, we've been reminded that Quake 2016, not Quake 2016, Doom 2016, Doom Eternal, and now this year with Doom the Dark Ages, you have single player arena shooter experiences. I think we can all agree that from a gameplay standpoint, Doom 2016, Doom Eternal, and Doom the Dark Ages are arena shooters. And they're more traditional arena shooters, very similar to Unreal Tournament and Quake Champions, for instance, right? And Quake 3 Arena. They're more along the lines of that when you think about it, really. And especially if you've played it, you'll know what I'm talking about, right? Yet all of those 3 games were awesome and successful. So I'm thinking to myself, what are the weaknesses of those 3 games? What is the one thing that those 3 games have not managed to capitalize on? And that is co-op. And this game, in my opinion, is in perfect position to create the ultimate co-op experience in its own arena shooter way within what it has already created, in a way that the audience has been whispering and kind of requesting for, especially those audience members that are more new to a game like this, but would jump into something like this. And then let me explain details. Now, we obviously have the Onslaught maps, right? And we've created a battle royale from that, which is awesome. And again, like I said, in 4 to 6 weeks, I think a lot of the issues, especially with the devs, have been hunkering down. I believe that these issues, or if not the majority of them, will be handled. I think eventually the battle royale optimization issues, as well as the fact that the battle royale will play better and they're going to change it and make it more like a traditional battle royale. I think that's going to happen. I think onslaught mode is going to continue to evolve. I think the arena shooter is going to continue to evolve in terms of everything that I mentioned previously. So I'm thinking now, we've already been teased kind of a lore. We already know that there's comics with some lore, right? As far as Splitgate is concerned. So I'm thinking to myself, we're in a position here with those maps, right? That we've put a battle royale into, right? To where you can create a co-op experience with up to, like, let's say 3 players, if not more. It could be done with more, because if you can play multiplayer shooters a lot more, you can sure as hell do something that's a PvE, right? You can have kind of a horde /zombies /firefight type of mode, to where you would have, like, let's say a certain number of rounds within each one of those big onslaught maps. And with every round, things get darker. You can go from daylight to all of a sudden things get dark. You get sunset, and then you get stormy nights, and then you get things on fire, and then you get hail, snow, and all that kind of stuff. And when you reach the final round, you've got sub bosses, regular bosses. You got things all over the map to pick up for you or your teammates. You can revive teammates possibly, or maybe even a few turrets here and there. Some people have even mentioned vehicles. And its own progression system and its own camos. And then when you make it through the last round of that map, you go through the gigantic portal with your teammates and you go on to the next map, and then you rinse and repeat, except it's going to be another experience because you've got new enemies now and all that other stuff. And then eventually, once you get through all the maps, you get to that final boss, which is going to be a pain in the ass, but a fun pain in the ass nonetheless, in a way that you can co-op this shit. And if you even look at Destiny, for instance, the raids are what made Destiny so great in the first place. With all due respect to the multiplayer, the raids are what made Destiny what it was, right? If that's what they were called, right? Weren't they called raids or whatever? I apologize. It's been a long time since I even touched Destiny. So I'm thinking to myself, Splitgate 2 is missing on an opportunity to do this. A great opportunity and a financial opportunity as well. And on top of that, you can also have people that specifically also loved Destiny. You can get those guys to take a peek into this, and they'll be like, oh, wow, this is great. And then the next thing you know, they're going to start to cover it, and then the word will spread, et cetera, et cetera. And again, and from a financial standpoint, this is something that I think will be very lucrative for the game as well. You already have your foundation here. So when you look at, like I said, with Doom 2016, Doom Eternal, and Doom the Dark Ages, you have an amazing arena shooter single player experience. But the one thing that's missing as far as something that they were never able to do was co-op. So imagine a co-op of up to 3 or even more players, and you're doing shit like this, kind of Destiny style, against all sorts of different enemies that kind of, blends in the horde, the firefight, the zombies kind of thing, with things all over the map and everything like that, weather effects going off, multiple rounds, its own progression system, its own camos. Dude, how does this not sound good? Remember, and also one more thing I want to add in is that when you get those players that would be interested in that mode, they would be playing a lot of that and they would get used to the mechanics. Now, I know that fighting AI enemies is not the same thing as fighting, regular people in multiplayer. I get that. But when you get people that have already been used to, the mechanics of the game, used to the weapons, stuff like that, they've upgraded the weapons and maxed them out because of the fact that they spent time grinding that mode, right? Well, that would encourage them to at least dip their toes in the multiplayer. And that would be a good way for you to get players into the multiplayer system, as opposed to just throwing them in there. Now, again, like I mentioned, the arena shooter hasn't been crazy popular in a long time. Even when Quake Champions came out, people played it, of course, and stuff like that. But then the ones that stuck around with that kind of genre are the ones that are still sticking around to this day. And then everybody else has kind of moved on. Other games came out, blah, blah, blah. But here's the thing, though. You have something that could be seasonal with a small cutscene before it even starts, and then a small cutscene if you make it to the end, and then every season you get a little bit of a continuation of it. I think we're missing an opportunity here. And I think this would be a really good way to attract new players, keep the game fresh, and add something to something that is already there. Obviously, from a creation standpoint, the developers would have to obviously create enemies and bosses and stuff like that and make things happen for a cutscene and stuff like that. However, when you look at the maps, as well as the weapons and everything else that's already coming in the game, right? And the fact that the dev team actually knows what they're doing, because you've got people that are experienced in the first-person shooter genre that are developing this game, as well as the passion and creativity of the developers, and as well as the CEO himself, having grown up playing Halo, wishing they can have Titanfall 3 and all that kind of stuff. And anybody who's anybody has at least played a Call of Duty, zombies round here and there, or maybe even tried a Gears of War horde mode, or maybe played a Halo firefight that has its own grind to it. And remember, I'm a multiplayer guy, and I would even play something like this. I would even spend some time doing something like this, especially with viewers from stream. Holy crap, that would be amazing. Are you kidding me? And of course, attracting and spreading the word. Being a free-to-play shooter that offers this much, which other free-to-play shooters don't to this extent, would be absolutely incredible. And the foundation's already there. And after everything gets sorted out, I think a certain percentage of concentration needs to be put into something like this, because I see this as a missed opportunity. And those are just my thoughts. I hope the devs are at least listening, and I hope something like this comes to fruition at some point in time with this game, because again, this is an opportunity for the entirety of the game. The people that are going to play multiplayer are always going to be there, especially if things continue to progress, and especially when things get fixed, which is what the devs are in the middle of doing now. So I personally don't think there's anything wrong with it expanding, as long as you don't get rid of the foundation of what made your game great in the first place. Don't downgrade the game. Don't make it easier. Don't cater it to people who don't know what they're doing, just like other games have. This is a way you can do it right. But again, I want this conversation to expand within the community. So I want to know in the comment section in terms of what you guys think, as well as things that you can add into this, because I think this would be awesome. And again, it's not just all about me. It's about what the community thinks as well, and as well as the developers. So anyway, just throwing it out there because I think this would be awesome. So with that being said, for those of you that stuck around, I want to say thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it. And as always, I like to thank you for taking the time to watch and or listen. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm looking forward to reading what you guys have to say in the comment section, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.